Hello and welcome to the Church of Basketball, where this week's sermon asks the question, who is the best big man in the NBA? Now, before we get to the answer, first we need to look at what exactly it means to be a big man in the modern NBA, because traditionally, the center was usually your biggest player who would be fed the ball with his back to the basket and generated points in the post using an array of moves. When this was particularly effective, it would draw an extra defender, which, in Shaq's case, you could just dunk over, or if you were feeling generous, you could find an open teammate. This led to a style of play where very often the first option was to feed the ball into the post and then work from there. If your man left you to double, you could get easy looks by cutting to the basket, or you could spot up at the three-point line and wait for the ball to be kicked back out. Teams with a dominant big man played basketball from the inside out. Fast forward to today's game, and things look very different, with expanded skill sets, different rules, and a game generally tilted towards giving smaller guys more of a chance. Offenses are now very much initiated on the perimeter, where handling the ball and shooting threes have become the priority, and shots around the basket are created by breaking defenders down off the dribble, meaning the game's gone from inside out to outside in. This means centers are no longer the center of the offense, but instead are required to come out to the three-point line, initiate action by setting screens to create space for the ball handler, and then roll to the rim to hopefully receive an interior pass.
Set screens and roll. I promise you I'll get you the ball. I promise you that.
This shift in style has changed the terminology of the game, with more emphasis on skill and spacing, meaning terms like point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, and center are being used less and less, and more often you'll hear people referring to guards, both of which can handle, pass and score, wings who generally either shoot or attack off the dribble, and bigs. Now big in NBA positional terms is a player 6'10" and above who spends most of their time focused around the paint, which means it does not include people like Kevin Durant, Giannis Antetokounmpo and Kristaps Porzingis. Although they all stand at least 7 feet tall, they're very well equipped to handle the ball on the perimeter, push it up the court in transition, leading fast breaks, and either shooting threes on the catch or faking and driving to the rim in what feels like 2 steps. So that's why those three are not bigs, they are unicorns. But when it comes to the question of the best big man, there are still a few players we can eliminate who qualify, as they are either somewhat limited in their skill set or in the role that they're asked to play. Steven Adams, Jarrett Allen, DeAndre Ayton, Clint Capella, Rudy Gobert, Jusuf Nurkic, Karl Anthony Towns and Jonas Valanciunas are all big men who contribute well to their teams but are not quite in that conversation of best in the league. In some cases this is because their job is limited to screening and rolling on offense, protecting the basket on defense, pulling down rebounds at both ends of the floor, and then in transition serving as the rim runner, essentially sprinting in a straight line up the middle of the court and relying on teammates to get them the ball. In other cases, there are guys who can do all those things for you, but are also able to play with their back to the basket and get buckets by feeding them the ball inside and using some good old-fashioned low post moves. However, it still doesn't put them in the top tier for the league. And this is also true if you can do all of the above, plus break defenders down off the dribble, lead fast breaks, handling the ball in transition and shooting threes, but unfortunately don't quite get it done at the defensive end of the floor. Please note, at the time of this recording, Karl Anthony Towns has made some improvement in the defensive area, so watch this space. In reality, there are just 2 names in contention for the best big man in the NBA. And if you hadn't already guessed, those names are Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic. When it comes to post-up scoring, they're number 1 and 2 in the league and are almost impossible to guard one-on-one, using a combination of size and post footwork to score over pretty much anyone you put on them. They can also step out to the three-point line and shoot off the catch like a wing, or they can function like a one-man fast break, pushing and handling the ball up the court, flashing dribbling skills like a guard, and going coast to coast, daring anyone to try and get in the way of the runaway train. But highlights can only tell so much of the story. To get a clear statistical view of the impact these two have had on the offensive end of the floor, you only need to look at their player efficiency rating, or PER, which is a formula that sums up all a player's positive accomplishments, subtracts the negative accomplishments, and returns a per minute rating of a player's performance. Or, in overall terms, one number sums up all the player's statistical accomplishments for that season. Well, in the current NBA season, the top 3 places in the PER list include both Embiid and Jokic, and also happens to be the 3 players who were finalists for MVP voting, so it's safe to say it's a pretty strong measurement. And if you look at the all-time best PER for a single season, this year Jokic actually overtook Wilt Chamberlain for the number 1 spot. Incidentally, Joel Embiid this season also qualified for number 14 all-time. And if you want to look at the best career PER by an individual player, Jokic now sits in 3rd place behind 2 other guys you may have heard of. Measuring defense with one number, on the other hand, is a little bit more tricky. Earlier in the season, Zach Cram of The Ringer wrote an article called "If you thought playing NBA defense was hard, try quantifying it," where he explained the statistic of adjusted plus minus, which is a basketball analytic that attempts to predict the impact of an individual player on the scoring margin of a game by controlling for the rest of the players on the court at any given time. He then refined it even more to create regularized adjusted plus minus, where the goal is to provide more accurate results by employing a special technique called ridge regression, aka regularization. It significantly reduces standard errors in adjusted plus minus APM. Now, I'm not going to pretend I understand any of that, but it's still an interesting article if you're into that kind of thing. What I do know though is that the top 2 in regularized adjusted plus minus for the league have 4 Defensive Player of the Year trophies between them. So it's safe to say that this is also a pretty solid metric. And Joel Embiid, being number 3 on that list, puts him in elite company as a defender. At 7 feet tall and 280 pounds, he has the size, strength and explosiveness to be a high-level rim protector, with the agility to chase down smaller players and meet bigger guys in the air to send back any weak attempts. But where he really stands out is with his ability to stay in front of smaller, faster players out on the perimeter, staying down in his stance and moving his feet like a guy half his size. Jokic, however, does not have that type of defensive agility, but he has still shown a lot of improvement since he first came into the league. Rather than athleticism, he uses timing and positioning to get into passing lanes, and at 6'11", with a 7'2" wingspan, he has the length to guard the rim, where quite often he reads the offensive player so well he doesn't even need to jump to block a shot. But even with all these different ways they're able to impact the game, there's still more. So what is it that sets them apart from everyone else in the league? Joel Embiid? This season, on Instagram, ESPN's Jay Williams did a great breakdown of what it is that makes him so special. His footwork.
Right. If you pay attention to the footwork, even look at the shimmy. Hits you with a little shake over the right shoulder, fade away. Look at the way he kicks out the right leg to a degree, like Kobe, like Michael Jordan. Look at the way he attacks different angles when he does drive to the basket. He works out with Drew Hanlen. All they do is imitate moves that Kobe and Michael Jordan have utilized.
And Jokic, his superpower? Well, it's his vision. You'll often hear Jokic be compared to the great passing big men in history, like Bill Walton, and due to his international impact, Arvydas Sabonis. But if you look past his size, you'll find elements of Magic Johnson with his no-look passing, and in his improvisation you can see Larry Bird. Simply put, he's not just a great passer for a big man, he's a great passer full stop. So, as far as the question of who's the best, well, honestly, if you want to hear people arguing and giving their opinions about anything, it's not too hard to find these days. But here at the Church of Basketball, we prefer to just put our energy into enjoying these incredible, game-changing big men and appreciating greatness. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like, and if you're feeling generous, maybe follow us on the socials. Until next time,
I'll say Church Priest Tabernacle.